Ukraine has just launched the largest drone attack ever recorded on Russian territory since the beginning of the war. The operation, called Spiderweb, destroyed at least 41 Russian military aircraft, including strategic nuclear-capable bombers. The impact of this attack was so great that military analysts are already talking about a turning point in the conflict. But does this event also have a prophetic dimension? Could we be seeing fulfillment of ancient prophecies that point to a large-scale war in the end times? Before we dive into this geopolitical and spiritual scenario, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Your support with the Super Thanks button and by becoming a member is essential for us to continue bringing revealing content like this. On June 1st, 2025, the world was surprised by the revelation of a mega military operation conducted by Ukraine against strategic targets inside Russia. According to information confirmed by various international media outlets, the Ukrainians managed to destroy 41 Russian aircraft, including Su-27 fighter jets and Tu-95 and Tu-22M3 nuclear bombers. The attack was carried out using long-range drones that were smuggled into Russia and launched in a coordinated manner from camouflage trucks. According to the Security Service of Ukraine, this operation had been planned for over a year and a half. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky himself supervised the mission's details, along with the head of intelligence, Vasyl Maliuk. The objective was clear: to directly hit Russia's strategic military infrastructure, reducing its attack capability and demonstrating that Ukraine still has the strength to react even in enemy territory. The Engels Air Base, one of the most important in Russian strategic aviation, was one of the targets hit. This base houses nuclear-capable bombers, which elevates the severity of the attack to unprecedented levels since the beginning of the conflict. Experts claim that about 30 to 40% of the Russian strategic bomber fleet was compromised. The estimated damage exceeds $7 billion. Russia confirmed it was targeted in the attack and classified the operation as a terrorist act. However, it avoided providing precise details about the damage. Unofficial sources report that the Kremlin was caught by surprise and that anti-aircraft defense systems failed to intercept a large number of the drones. What draws even more attention is that, shortly after the attack, Ukraine announced it was sending a delegation to Istanbul, where it intends to resume negotiations with Russia to discuss a possible truce. This initiative occurs as Moscow tries to reorganize its forces and contain the impacts of the blow it suffered. This twofold movement, a devastating offensive followed by a diplomatic opening, reveals a new strategy from the Ukrainian government, which seeks to impose military pressure while simultaneously negotiating from a position of strength. But what does this have to do with biblical prophecies? The answer may lie in chapters 38 and 39 of the book of the prophet Ezekiel, which describe a great war involving the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, names that many scholars symbolically relate to the current region of Russia. Ezekiel speaks of an attack that will come from the far north against the land of Israel in the context of a great global conflict. Although the current scenario does not yet directly involve Israel, the developments of this conflict between Ukraine and Russia have the potential to cause a geopolitical realignment in the Middle East, especially if nuclear weapons or direct NATO involvement become part of the conflict. Furthermore, in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 6, Jesus warned, "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for all these things must take place, but the end is not yet." What we are seeing today is exactly that: rumors, tensions, coordinated attacks, and escalation that seems increasingly difficult to control. The events of Operation Spiderweb are not just military. They carry a strong symbolic charge. A small country, apparently cornered, strikes with precision at the heart of a nuclear superpower. This reminds us of several biblical passages where God uses the unlikely to overthrow the powerful. David versus Goliath, Gideon with only 300 men, and now, drones against nuclear bombers. The message behind these episodes always seems to be the same. The sovereignty of the Most High is manifested above human armies. And while nations seek peace agreements, the Word of God also warns us in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3, "For when they say, 'peace and safety,' then sudden destruction comes upon them." Could we be living the prelude to this prophecy? This attack, besides revealing a strategic vulnerability of Russia, also demonstrates a paradigm shift in modern warfare. The use of long-range drones, operated clandestinely in enemy territory, reveals that the future wars may no longer depend on tanks or troops on the battlefield, but on technology and precision intelligence. And when we observe all this in the light of biblical eschatology, we cannot ignore the passages that speak of intense wars and sudden destructions in the last days. In Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 and 4, when the second seal is opened, the red horseman appears, a symbol of war and widespread violence. Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another. Although this prophecy is related to the eschatological end, it also points us to a growing scenario of conflict between nations, where peace is gradually being withdrawn from the earth. The Ukrainian attack also caused diplomatic impacts. Some analysts see the negotiations proposed by Ukraine in Istanbul as an attempt to gain international legitimacy and prepare the ground for new military support from the West. Others warn that this offensive could provoke an even more severe Russian retaliation, possibly involving long-range missiles and more explicit threats to the NATO bloc. This increases the risk of a direct confrontation between nuclear powers, something that, until then, had remained at diplomatic and economic levels. The prophecy of Joel chapter 3 also resonates strongly at this moment. The prophet speaks of a time when God will gather all nations in the valley of Jehoshaphat for judgment, after saying, "Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong." The reversal of forces we are seeing today, with Ukraine directly attacking nuclear bases inside Russia, sounds like a prophetic foreshadowing of a time when the seemingly weak dare to challenge the giants. We are, therefore, facing a delicate and meaning-laden scenario. Operation Spiderweb is not just a military action. It is a symbol of the new times we live in, times when alliances, borders, and armed forces are tested every day, times when prophecies seem to align with newspaper headlines, times when every attack, every explosion, and every truce attempt may be writing the final chapters of human history. The location of the attack also raises questions. The targeted air base, situated deep within Russia, was considered one of the country's most protected, housing large aircraft and nuclear-capable bombers. The fact that Ukrainian drones manage to traverse hundreds of kilometers and still cause such destruction represents a strategic humiliation for Moscow and a clear warning to the world. There are no longer immune zones in times of technological warfare. This type of attack recalls the words of the Lord in Matthew chapter 24, when Jesus speaks about the signs of the end. "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for all these things must take place. But the end is not yet." What we are witnessing today are these rumors becoming reality. Silent wars waged with artificial intelligence, espionage, and surgical strikes. And all this under the shadow of nuclear weapons. The psychological impact on Russia is profound. For the first time since the conflict began, the Kremlin has admitted significant losses on its own soil. This creates a dangerous precedent. The Russian government may be pressured internally to respond even more aggressively, perhaps even reevaluating its nuclear doctrine, which already provides for the use of warheads in the event of an existential threat. And if that happens, we would be facing a historical turning point, with unpredictable global consequences. The diplomatic maneuvers between Ukraine and Russia, especially with the announcement of a possible truce in Istanbul, may seem like a step towards peace. However, many analysts believe it is merely a strategic pause, a reorganization before new offensives. This aligns with what the prophet Ezekiel wrote in chapter 13, verse 10, precisely because they have misled my people, saying, "Peace," when there is no peace. A false sense of tranquility may, in fact, be the harbinger of an even greater storm. The world watches these events with eyes turned to the sky and hearts full of fear. After all, are we seeing fulfillment of ancient words? Could the war between Russia and Ukraine be paving the way for an even more devastating global conflict? Could nations be aligning like pieces on a prophetic chessboard, awaiting an outcome already foretold in the scriptures? In light of all this, what can we do? Watch and pray. As Jesus warned us, The signs are before our eyes. Conflict are no longer isolated, and the world is heading towards an increasingly tense, chaotic, and prophetic scenario. What seemed distant in the books of Daniel and Revelation now pulses in the daily headlines, in the decisions of world leaders, and in the battles fought in silence, behind the scenes of global geopolitics. If you also perceive that we are living in prophetic times, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support is essential. Contribute with a super thanks button or by becoming a channel member. This helps us continue producing content that alerts, edifies, and awakens. Until the next video. And remember, everything that is happening has already been revealed. It's time to understand the times and prepare.